No one can ever get into your computer ever unless you let them. So what happens? You call the bad guy and he says, all right, let me look at your computer. I'm here to help. Sometimes they don't even say, let me into your computer. Sometimes they just tell you, right? All right, hold the Windows thing on your keyboard and press R. And then they'll say, go to www.logmein123.com, for example. Okay, and I don't know if I pulled that up. Let's find out. There it is. Yeah, so it pulls up this thing. Oh, look at that. And then he'll give you a code and you type it in. And in a few seconds, he takes over your computer's keyboard and mouse. And you watch him fly around. And again, half the time they don't even tell you what you're doing. They just have you type things. Oh, I'm just helping you. That's the only time anyone can get in is if you let them in, okay? There was a Swedish movie about vampires called Don't Let the Right One In. And it talked about how the vampire would knock on your door and they couldn't break into your house unless you invited them in. So they had to figure out a way to get you to invite them in. Same deal. Same deal. What they'll do a lot of times at this point, and again, another huge thing to know that your computer guy is not aware of is that these remote support tools that they're using are fully legal. So if you get one of these and then you call a computer guy and he says, oh, bring it in for a virus scan. He does not understand the nature of the issue. Bad guys are now using fully legalized tools to get away with it. And one of my clients is a police trainer and I'm trying to have him introduce me to police departments and anyone really, fire departments or whoever wants to listen to me so I can teach prevention, right? So another thing, once these guys get into your machine using these fully legalized remote support tools, okay? These are tools that any computer guy can use, good or bad. Log me in 123, AnyDesk, TeamViewer, you name it, right? They're using these tools, so they go right in the door, right? They walk right in. One of the things they'll do is they'll do a smoke and mirrors thing, called Event Viewer. Where did it go? Ta-da! Here's Event Viewer. This is cool. I'm actually doing this on the actual machine here. So they'll go into things. Ooh, security. Let's click on security. Come on, and we'll wait a few seconds. Sorry, it's taking attendance here. Oh, look at all this. Oh, wow. So they'll get you scared. Let's see here. All right, these are all success, but maybe toward the. Let's go to system. Oh, yeah. Oh, there's warnings. Sir, ma'am, there are 25,293 warnings. Warnings. Errors. Warnings. Smoke and mirrors, folks. You know that term. That's all it is. A event viewer is something in every computer that records a log of innocuous events. That's it. But most people don't know that. So they look at it and they get you riled up.
You just ignore it.
Don't let them in the first place. Don't let the vampires in the first place. But if you do, anyone, and you know this from life, right? You know this from life. If someone is really desperate and persistent, then chances are something's wrong, right? And think twice. Can't tell you how many bullets I dodged in relationships that way. They show you a list of innocuous things. It's kind of like, again, if you go to your doctor and your doctor says, are you blinking or sneezing lately? Are you hiccuping? That's terrible. You should be scared, right? It's innocuous things that don't matter, but he's using them. Well, it said system warning, so it must have been, wow, right? Again, we've all lived in fear, so we just believe it. The other thing they'll do, and again, I have a test machine and I play dumb and I let them break into my machine and I watch what they do. That's how I learn, because they change every day, right? They change their phone numbers every day, and so blocking their phone number doesn't help. And side note, I'm creating an appliance that blocks all scam calls to a landline. Hopefully that'll be out later this year. Keep an eye on that. Keep in touch, but
Are landlines now all Wi-Fi? Or are they really connected by a?
it's not Wi-Fi. A lot of them are going toward more modern wires that go into your house called
Okay.
fiber optic, but it has nothing to do with Wi-Fi necessarily. Yeah, but yeah, it's sad that people are abandoning their landlines, but they feel so helpless because of the constant barrage of scam calls. But again, none of the suffering needs to happen. None of this needs to happen, right? And the few guys who tried to create solutions to that problem end up creating harebrained schemes that are ineffective. My industry loves slathering complexity on a problem to make it worse. You ever go to a cocktail party and talk to an engineer and ask them how to solve a problem? But it takes simplicity and confidence and logic to solve a problem, especially in this industry. So I'll let the guy into my machine and I'll let him snoop around. And conveniently for him, our web browsers, right, Firefox, Chrome, and heaven forbid Edge, will store our passwords for us. Oh, how convenient. So now the bad guy goes in there and he told me, he said, I am securing your system. Right? I'm securing your system. And he goes in there and he hunts for your passwords for your bank. Nice job, buddy. Right? They're not doing viruses, are they? It's a guy snooping around your machine. There's no virus. There's no virus. There hasn't been a virus. There's never been a virus here. They also will sometimes tell you all sorts of things, right? You need to delete the banking app on your phone because hackers are in there. Oh, the hackers are in there? Okay, I'll do whatever you say. And then you delete the app on your phone. In reality, he wants to delete that app on your phone because that app on your phone would notify you that someone's getting into your bank account. Right? Or the other one, don't call anyone. Your phone lines are compromised by North Koreans. So I had a client who ran over to the neighbor's house and called me from there, luckily. And they don't want you using your phone because they don't want you calling your computer guy. They don't want you calling your kids or your nephews or nieces or whatever. So they tell you, oh, don't use your phone. And they scare you into it. Oh, okay, I won't use my phone. I'm afraid I'm being compromised, right? Don't worry, I'll take care of you. They don't want you using these things because then you talk to someone who can shed some light on the situation, okay? So having a virus scanner can never stop them ever, 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 ever. And one of the guys last night in my talk said, yeah, I got one of these and my nephew is a successful computer engineer somewhere and he's a higher up at whatever and he makes thus and such money and I got one of these and I called him and he said, Uncle, I'm gonna erase your computer right away. Well, even that guy doesn't understand completely what's going on. All you need to do is remove that little legalized tool in the computer and the guy can't get in anymore. That's all it is. He says, oh, we're gonna put AVG on your computer, do a virus scanner. You know, he meant well, he loved his uncle, but he didn't understand that virus scanners are completely useless at this point, okay? What does stop them? What are we gonna do to stop this? Yeah, especially when they say, warning, do not turn off your computer, it'll blow up. Turn it off. Or, really, all you need to do is move your mouse to the top of the screen. And it'll say, press escape to exit this full screen video. It's just an evil video. That's all it is. And you press escape on your keyboard sometimes, or you move your mouse up to the top and look for the X. I can't tell you how many times a day I could walk someone through this on the phone. About a year ago, I had the secretary and I didn't have the time, but she had the time. And she'd get one of these calls and she'd go to people's houses and press escape and close the scary window. And they gave her $40 for anytime she'd make $40 each time. And she was thrilled. She's a young kid, you know, starting out in the career world. And, And she was thrilled and they were thrilled that for $40 she saved them. So that's a good deal. Aside from that, what is going to stop this phenomenon in the world? It's not technical. Again, it's not technical. It's scary sentences and nothing more. What is going to stop this?
No. No.
Laws are excellent at complicating things and not actually helping anything. That's our first reaction, right? In the old world, yeah, you make a law and people stop doing it. These guys are beyond the law. They're in all sorts of countries. They're using random phone numbers that change every few minutes. They're hiding under cover of complexity, as I say all the time. What's gonna stop this?
Well, don't do it.
Just ignore it.
Yeah.
Just ignore it. And please warn your friends. It's up to you to stop this. Not only am I empowering you here, but I'm telling you, it's up to you to stop this. Tell your friends who come to the library and who you, anywhere. Just be aware. That's it. Awareness. That's all it takes. Prevention. If you don't pick up the phone, none of this happens. None of this would have happened, right? And people always call, hey, Mark, I got a scary thing, and I talked to the guy, and he, all right, did you let him into the machine? I don't know, maybe I did. All right, leave it off until I get there. Right? And unfortunately, a lot of scummy computer guys at these big box stores, their first instinct is to wipe out your whole computer because they think you have a virus. What do you mean? Oh yeah, your computer's compromised, it's all poison, and they wipe out your precious photos and videos. And whatever, because they have less than 5 minutes of training and do not understand the logic. Okay, so again, it's up to you to warn your friends. That's it. That's what's gonna stop this. It's up to you to tell them all of it is fake. Tech companies don't wanna call you. They're never gonna call you. And please tell your bankers to stop sending people to the big box store for a virus scan. It's an excellent way to waste $300 for absolutely inept fake protection. I had this lady, she's a longtime client of mine, and she got one of these things, and she went to her bank, and the bank said, yeah, go to Best Buy and get a virus scan. So she forgot to call me, and she actually went to some local shop. They did a 1981 virus scan. They shrugged their shoulders, handed it back to her. They completely ignored the fully legalized remote support tool that was right there on the desktop. They completely ignored the fake cleaner that the guy put in there. It was called Total AV, and he said it was gonna protect them. And they completely ignored everything. They did a virus scan and told her computer was old and she needed to buy a new one besides. So she went out and bought a new one. And the only reason she called me is because she was terrified by the new one, because it was Windows 11, and nobody on this earth has ever figured out how to use Windows 11. I end up, if you have a newer Windows machine, I beat it up and make it look like Windows 7 so it's actually usable. All right, so you got that? Only you can prevent forest fires. So those are the 4 new threats. We're going to talk about a couple of bonus ones. What are you guys paying for internet, for home internet around here?
Too much.
Great answer. Yeah. What, 80 or 50?
225 for just.
Just internet, hoo-ha, you must have the ultimate extreme package. Are you doing, producing movies from your house?
No,
Xfinity just told us.
Xfinity went up to 118.
It's too
Because of
expensive.
inflation or whatever.
$92.
Haha, we're gonna have fun with this discussion. I'm gonna save y'all a lot of money. And I've been tossing and turning for the past 15 years, just massively frustrated. Because I have some answers here. I know how to save everyone money, but it's a matter of figuring out. It wasn't until this year, really past couple weeks that I've started my speaking tour. Because I know how to save people zillions of dollars.
Yeah, they just went up to, I like to watch Nesson and next be in the sports channel,
Cool.
which came with the extended basic
Mhm.
package.
Oh, it triggers the next package, of course.
Yeah, just the next one. So I've had that for years. It was just January 14th. Now they want you to upgrade your subscription. It was gonna be $255.
Wow.
And from like 170.
They must think these sports heads got a lot of money.
An extra $8.
No way.
which I did,
Good. Oh, and,
trying to figure out a solution.
we're gonna talk about it
Comcast.
here. Yeah,
Yeah.
so you said, aside from the TV package, it triggered the internet package to go up as well?
Just the whole subscription.
The whole shebang?
Internet TV.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm,
Again, I just had basic extended. And
mm-hmm,
the movie channels, all this other stuff, just extended basic.
uh-huh. So, yeah, let's talk about this. I do have a family friend out in Hull. And I visited them. I mean, where I'm from, we're afflicted with Spectrum, but you guys are under the thumb of Xfinity. And I was really relieved when I found out that those two didn't merge. It would have created a Godzilla and it would have crushed all of us. So here's what happened so yeah, we're gonna talk about two things with the internet here, but we'll talk about the pricing first. Here's what transpired. That's the word I wanted. I went over there and they're a couple in their late 80s. They probably check their email once a week and they watch one channel from Italy on the TV and that's about it. And they were paying something like $280. And this was 2 years ago. So yeah, it's getting wild. All right. Again, they do all of this under cover of complexity, right? They intimidate you into thinking that that's the way it is, and you just pay because I want my whatever it is, and I'm willing to pay for it as long as they deliver it. Okay. So I called them up, and I called the cancellation department, and this is a very fine art, calling the cancellation department. And I said, yeah, what's going on here? Prices are too high, and we're about to switch. There was a time when Spectrum in my city had no competitors. They had successfully crushed the phone company. And so they had no competitors, so they weren't willing to bargain. But now there are a couple of competitors. The phone company was actually resuscitated. And we also have cellular internet from T-Mobile. I love T-Mobile for cell phones. Oh, and don't let me forget to talk about that. Basically, if you don't travel outside of the country, T-Mobile has something called secret $15 plan for your cell phone. So a lot of my people, if you're not going overseas, you could do secret $15 plan. They're not allowed to say it, but if you go in there and request it, don't take no for an answer. So that's a beautiful thing. And I like them because they have real human beings and real stores. You don't have to call anywhere.
Is the $15 plan include unlimited internet? Is it?
Unlimited talk and text, and the data is like 6 gig, which is enough for beginners. Yeah, it's more than what I would use. So that's something, always look for alternatives. Again, always research underdogs and alternatives, because they're gonna be a lot less abusive than the monopolies, right? So,
Do we have an alternative to Xfinity Internet
great question,
here
yeah.
on Cape Cod?
Look around and get your torches and pitchforks and ask for a local fiber optic provider. A lot of local ones are popping up and they're trying to liberate you from the big cable companies. So ask around, see if there's a local fiber provider. There was one that appeared in my city and they're pretty good. And they're gonna be like $50 a month, give or take. And because they're using fiber optic, it just means a wire that's made out of glass. It means it's incredibly reliable. And a lot of times they're not these complicated conglomerates, right? We're here to give you internet, we charge you one price and we leave you alone. We don't sell you anything else. Anything else? What was that? Okay, so the other alternative you have is T-Mobile cellular home internet. And that's what I was gonna say there. If you're doing a lot of streaming, I wouldn't necessarily use it. But if you just got, a cottage in Cape Cod and you just wanna use it once in a while, great. If I just had a vacation home or whatever, if I'm just using email or, doing light stuff, sure, get the cellular internet. Even if you don't, you can use it as a bargaining chip. You call up Xfinity and say, hey, you know what? I heard T-Mobile's giving home internet for $40. And then you let them read their script from a sheet of paper. Well, sir, ma'am, that's not as good as ours, blah, blah, blah. And you say, don't worry, I'm not doing anything heavy on it, right? And you say, what can you do for me? And then they're reading from a sheet of paper. None of them have ever heard of computers before. None of them know the actual concepts. None of them even pronounce the terms right. They don't know the difference between megabit and megabyte, and they're just reading from a paper. But I used to work in a cubicle like that, so I've learned how to be nice to them. And so you have a little mercy on them, and you play the game, and you let and they'll say, all right, what kind of things are you doing on the internet? And just say, I do email once a month. I don't do anything else. Nothing in here but us chickens, as they said on Looney Tunes. And then they'll say, well, you're gonna miss out, and this isn't good. And you say, hey, look, what can you do for me? Can you beat that price? The guy I talked to a couple years ago when I was at my friend's house in Hull, the guy gave me an offer that I didn't even know existed. He had an internet package for 17 bucks. I don't know if they're still doing that. Maybe it's 20 bucks by now, whatever. Look for that. Hey, I heard about this package at 17 bucks. And maybe he says, fine, well, ma'am, it's 30 bucks now, or whatever, fine. Better than 119. And so you say, cool, can we do that? You know, don't change my TV. I like my TV channels. Or write down a list of the channels you care about. And just say, look, I don't use my channels. All I want are this, this, and this. Can you do something for me? Spectrum has a secret plan where you pick 10 channels and it's a lot cheaper. It's like 40 bucks. So, you know, just make sure that you get what you want. Tell them don't change, don't remove anything that I care about, right? Don't take no for an answer. Then they're gonna read you more questions off a sheet of paper and just don't take no for an answer. Well, but that's not enough speed. You're only getting 100 megabit. That's not enough speed, right? Here's the story, okay? The smallest plans they would possibly offer are around 100 megabit. Okay, that's a unit of measurement, just means your speed. Most human households don't need more than 25. So even the smallest package is going to be 4 times what you would ever utilize. My mom always says that she doesn't like when she goes out for ice cream and asks for a kiddie dish and they give you a huge dish to justify the $8 price. Same thing. They have to give you 100, 300, 500 to justify the ridiculous price. They hope that you don't know that you don't need any of it. I lived with a 10 megabit plan up until a couple of years ago when they put me on a 25 megabit and it was still more. And I do all sorts of stuff. I do Zoom calls and you name it. So you say, yeah, no big deal. I'll take that. Don't worry. I'm not doing anything on the internet. I just want it for occasional use. I'm not doing anything fancy. Don't answer their questions. All right. And so eventually if you, and I love doing this for people. And again, I'm willing to train people. If you have any people who don't know what to do and they're aspiring computer guys or whatever, I'll teach them. And a lot of times to be able to save dramatically on your bill. I can't think of the term right now, but the whole cable industry actually has a term for this. And where they say they charge most people a lot of money, but the few people who call and threaten to cancel, they'll make a concession for you. Right?
Yeah, so what about using like files? See, the cave's kind of tough. I don't know how well it works, but then have a streaming service TV, will that handle it?
All of it is more speed than you would ever
So
utilize.
just get rid of Comcast completely, go to Tubi, just use Comcast internet.
I have the cheapest senior citizen internet at my house, and I do all the streaming in the world. And I can stream while I'm doing Zoom, while I'm doing a podcast. And again, it's 4 times more speed than I would ever utilize.
Because I believe I went to a presentation of one of the state reps, Randy Hunt, probably 5 years ago. And he said it was Massachusetts state law that they had to provide basic package TV and internet for, I think back then was $65.
Brilliant.
I
Yeah,
don't know
they
if
don't
it's-
want you to know that, but absolutely, that's
It's just internet alone is more than that. TV, they had to provide that as a service.
That's really cool. I didn't know about that law, and that might explain why that guy offered me that $17 package.
This is like 5-6 years ago.
And maybe the numbers have changed slightly, but it's still gonna be something like that.
Mhm.
That's really cool.
Good.
But yeah, as far as speed, don't ever worry about speed. The connections they're bringing to your house can power your whole neighborhood. Again, to justify the price. And even the basic package is more than enough. And sometimes they'll fire back with a couple of curveballs. Well, why don't I just, all right, you're paying 118, how about 116? You're smart enough to,
They offered me a free Apple Watch.
woo,
It increased my, connection would be $10 extra a month.
oh, more besides, right? And they're dangling things in front of you because they know most people will bite. An Apple Watch is a watch that is designed to stop working after a couple of years, and it records everything about you. He knows when you're sleeping, he knows when you're awake, like Santa Claus. It knows everything about you. And if you forget your password, it's roasted forever. And hopefully I'll get time to talk about Apple. Apple used to be superior in every way. They used to compete based on merit. And then in 2019, they fell apart. All their good designers walked out. They started designing unrepairable products. You're still paying the premium price for what you thought was a superior computer. They used to be superior. That's a 2012 Apple computer that I'm using right now. All of my machines right now that I use as my machines are 2012 machines. 2 Apples and 1 Dell. So again, I can make a machine last a very long time. So you're still paying the premium price. The world isn't gonna wake up to this until a few years from now when you start having problems with your 2019, 2020, 2021 computers. And you find out that these new Apple computers are 1 circuit board. You are not allowed to upgrade it. You are not allowed to repair it. You are not allowed to recover your data if there's a problem. You crumple it up like a paper cup and throw it away. It's very sad because they used to make phenomenal stuff and they used to be user friendly. And now they're all about milking people for recurring fees, put your computer in the garbage after a couple of years and pay us $1 a month times everybody on earth. That's a lot of money every month. Let's talk about the next part of the internet connection here. And this is something close to my heart because I see this all the time. I had this guy, Jeff, call me up 2 years back and he said, Mark, my Netflix is always buffering and crashing, right? My Zooms are always glitchy and my internet's always spotty, okay? And I called them and the internet company said, oh, you need our Turbo Ultimate package. And that didn't help. Of course it won't help because that wasn't the problem. What a lot of computer guys don't know and a lot of internet providers don't want you to know is that if you rent the router from them, we got an issue. So, quick lesson. This is very easy, okay? You got a modem and you got a router. You got 2 things, and that's how you get on the internet, okay? A modem connects you to your provider. Xfinity or Verizon or whoever. The modem connects you to the world. The router governs traffic in your home. We used to have just 1 computer. You know, you only needed a modem when you had 1 computer, but now you have multiple machines, right? So the router governs that traffic in your home. You got a desktop, you got a laptop, you got your family members have machines, you got tablets, you got watches, you've got smartphones, you got streaming stuff. With a router, you can have up to 256 things in your home connected to the internet. And side note on that Apple Watch offer, that is the new form of the tablet scandal, where the cell phone providers were, oh, free tablet, but they didn't tell you that it added another phone line to your bill. Same thing with the Apple Watch, right? If you want an Apple Watch, fine, but tell them you don't want to pay for the extra phone line because that's a scandal and it's pointless. I mean, I know one person, one of my friends says, Mark, you know what? I don't like to have my phone in my pockets while I go jogging, so I pay for the phone line so that my Apple Watch is available as a phone. All right, fine. If you willingly want that, fine. My whole point is 99% of the expenditures in this industry are done when they weren't aware of why they needed it. They didn't need it, right? So what's going on here? You got a modem? What does that do? Modem connects you to your internet provider. The router does traffic in your home. Okay, those are your things. For a while there, and I discussed this in my book, for a while there, they were making a combo box that did both things very poorly. Okay, now they're giving you separate boxes. You usually need the modem from the provider in most cases, but the router, you have a choice. You can rent their filthy piece of garbage, or you can buy your own good one. So what I do for people every week, hey Mark, I'm getting spotty internet and I keep calling and paying for more and it doesn't seem to help. Why? Well, I say, are you renting the fake router? What do you mean? So fake wireless router is a term that I've coined just to make it simple, right? A fake router just means the router that you rent from the cable company. Yeah, technically it's real and technically it works once in a while, but it's just horribly designed. It's not worth using. Unacceptable. So what happens if you use a fake wireless router? Well, you remember the Dennis the Menace cartoons? When he's putting a kink in the hose and Mr. Wilson can't water his garden, right? That's what a fake rental router does. If you're renting the router from your provider, cuts your signal by 90%, and you can't use it more than 11 feet away. And then you wonder why you're having problems. And then you call up, oh, you need more and more and more internets, right? What if Mr. Wilson called his water authority and they said, oh, you need to pay more and more for a bigger water connection to your house. But in reality, Dennis was the problem. So you got all these people paying for the turbo add-on and the ultimate packages and the 500 megabit and the 1 gigabit and the 5 gigabit and all these packages, when in reality, that's what's happening. The router puts a kink in the hose. So what I do, and by the way, you're paying 5, 10, 15 bucks a month for the privilege. So I show up with a real router. I sell you a real router. It's yours forever. I sell them for 50 or 100 bucks. Pays for itself after a few months, right? And you just don't have problems again. During COVID, a lot of people called me up and said, Mark, my brother-in-law came over and put a repeater because my internet was spotty, so he put a repeater in. Well, a repeater can't help you, right? That's like Dennis out there putting a kink in your hose and then your brother-in-law putting a second faucet next to your faucet. That doesn't help, does it? You gotta get rid of the actual problem first, okay? So you get rid of the fake router, you hand it back to your cable company, you save a few bucks a month. I install a real router, you just don't have problems from then on in. So now all of a sudden, your internet connection is not being crimped, it's not being impaired, it's not being chopped. So now you're getting the full speed that you're supposed to be getting, which again is more than enough. I think that's it as far as fake Wi-Fi goes. Any questions on that?
Yeah, I actually do have a Netgear combo piece.
Nah.
It seems to work pretty good.
It's okay, but if tomorrow morning you want to leave that internet provider and go somewhere else, you have to put the whole thing in the garbage. It's a beautiful
I
way.
bought that from Staples.
Doesn't matter. If you go to another provider, they're not going to use a cable wire. They're going to use a different kind of wire. You put the whole thing in the garbage. My industry loves selling combo boxes because they know you'll be back. And by the way, now it'll shatter your whole network at home. So now you're gonna have to have a new router, a new everything. Always buy separate forever and ever, amen.
Okay.
They love selling combos.
Separate modem, separate.
And again, most providers will give you a pure modem. I like to call them pure modems, where it's just a modem and not a combo. Anytime anyone tells you to do something, double check it and usually do the opposite of what they push you to do. There are certain brands out there like HP and Samsung that incentivize these salespeople to push their products on you desperately because they know you'll be back in a year. Because their products just don't last as long. All right. Real quick here, we're gonna do a couple more concepts. Talk about cloud control gizmos. Who goes to, anyone here been to a cocktail party and your friends have a Sonos speaker playing? They sound really nice.
Or any kind of. Just Sonos or.
Specifically Sonos,
Oh, okay.
yeah. they sound okay, but their customers aren't aware that their products are controlled by the factory, like I was alluding to a little earlier. These products, you turn them on, you don't know this, but the product calls home to its factory to beg for permission to exist before you are allowed to use it. Oh, that's all right, Mark, I don't notice it, whatever. Well, you will notice it when your product is deemed unworthy and told to stop functioning, as the early models of Sonos have already done. That's already happened with the first couple models of Sonos. You turn it on and it says, sorry, too bad, this is now a paperweight.
Are you talking like Alexis, special machines they have, like the
There's a
drive?
lot of brands of stuff right now. It depends on the brand and the model. Sonos is just my favorite example to
Heard it.
hang out there. But there's plenty of these products.
It's like in that, you know.
Google
it's-
Mini,
And those, yeah, those are also cloud controlled products. And by the way, to go back to routers, on my website, I have a recommendations page where I recommend different brands of routers. Same deal there. When you buy a router, make sure it doesn't require cloud control. Make sure it's not controlled by its factory. I buy routers that are mine. I purchase them and they're mine and they're not controlled by anyone. So just be careful. Ask the jokers at the store, hey, does this require a cloud subscription? And none of them really know. Well, I look into it. My favorite brand is TP-Link right now. I know they're under fire in the news right now, but they still beat the pants off of most brands as far as price to performance and ease of installation and so on.
for a router.
And they're just yours, and no one kills them remotely after a certain amount of time. They're yours and you own it. Imagine that.
Where you order them with, and we have routed through your website, and it's shipped?
I don't do that. I did that for a while, but I recommend B&H as a good alternative to Amazon. Because they're not Amazon, that's why I like them. And they also have, again, this incredible new technology called human beings who help you. So I like them.
B&H,
B&H, that's, there's plenty of non-Amazon retailers, but they're my favorite at the moment. And you can certainly ask them, hey, give me a router that's not cloud controlled. Okay. So the idea is that a lot of these products, unbeknownst to us, are being controlled by their factory. And a lot of times we don't notice this until the day comes when they aren't allowed to operate anymore. They become paperweights, they become doorstops. So I always say that shame on anyone in any of these companies who claims to be an environmentalist. You just created a lump of waste. So certain products, most of the products in the landfill are ones that are perfectly fine that I can resurrect. Some of these products are in the landfill because of forced obsolescence, because the products were deliberately terminated by their creators. Unbelievable. No one knows this is happening.
Is Alexa one of those?
So Alexa, aside from the fact that it records you throughout the day, right? People aren't aware that it has to listen to you in order to listen for the hey Alexa. Aside from that, yeah, that certainly, I mean, you're not allowed to turn it on unless you register it to your name, beg Amazon for permission to start using it and so on. They want them, it's in that case, it's in their best interest to keep that thing going. In the Sonos case, they want you to put it in the garbage and buy another Sonos and don't ever question us, keep buying our stuff, right? But in that case, with Amazon, they're selling those at a loss, usually, right? They just want to get them into your house so they can start spying on you. So it's in their best interest to keep those going, but yeah, those cannot exist without the permission of their factory. Rental software, real quick, we'll do a little bit on this. In the 90s, we bought Microsoft Office, right? You use Microsoft Word. You bought it. It came with a CD and a little certificate and a little key. And it was yours. And you kept it on your shelf and it was yours. $150, let's say, and it's yours. What happens now? I call it the 365 scandal because in my professional opinion, this is a scandal. A lot of software companies are going to this rental scheme, including the Microsoft 365. On their website, it says, buy now. for $69.95, and then in microscopic letters, it says per year. Huh, buy now, but then it says per year. That's not buy, that's rent. Somebody at Microsoft doesn't understand words or ethics. So now we have to pay $69.95 a year for something we used to buy once. It's like going to the hardware store and buying a hammer. Instead of $10, it's $9 a year. Where's the sense in that?
Yeah, I was very disappointed. I'm a photographer and I could buy Adobe and not anymore. So I switched my pictures now to Apple, but I have a hard time adjusting.
Yeah,
But
look up
Adobe-
Corel. Yeah, because Adobe's another one that was involved in the software rental scandal where, hey, we used to charge for Photoshop, now we're just gonna milk everyone.
Yeah, Photoshop and not, yeah.
Look up Corel, they're a good underdog, they're an alternative, they're not an abusive monopoly. Because with Apple, you're just jumping into the frying pan, right? Where Apple now controls all your pictures, it's a one-way street, they wanna suck all your pictures into iCloud, and too bad for you, you'll never see them again. This is a one-way street, these are ours. And you pay us $1 a month so we can hold them for you, because we don't trust you. Or the Apple Photos program that locks all your photos into a ball on your computer and you can never see them and you can never back them up and so on. Yeah, look up Corel, look up any alternatives. There's something called the GIMP, which is absolutely free. GIMP. If you're into editing photos, the GIMP is absolutely free. It's very advanced. I haven't spent the time to learn it. But if you're into that, you'll get it, no problem. It's free, it's made by volunteers who hate Microsoft and Adobe. And we'll get into that in a second. There's a lot of free software that's coming out now made by volunteers who hate big tech. And that's called open source. And if we get time, we'll talk about that. In my book, I go over the history of, like I said, Bill Gates and Steve Jobs, and I talk about open source. And yeah. So what do we do? Chances are, any of you guys work on Wall Street right now? Chances are you don't need the advanced, incredibly advanced, ultra complicated features that the latest Microsoft Office gives you. Most of the time, people just want to read a Word document from their HOA once a year. Right? Casual use, consumer use. I don't even use the advanced features of this stuff, okay? What do? There is a product called LibreOffice. LIBRE. So if I come over to a client's house and they're infected with this Microsoft 365 rental scheme, I say, hey, I'll give you a choice. If you are an advanced Wall Street person, then I have a fight against Microsoft on your behalf, and I try to obtain the one-time purchase for $150. So that saves you $70 a year for the rest of your life. That's pretty good. People are willing to pay me a lot because I save them a lot more. So I do a one-time purchase in Microsoft Office, or again, if you're a residential consumer, I say, hey, why don't we do LibreOffice? Okay.
That LIB or B?
B.
Okay, thank you.
B is in Bravo. So Libre is free, right, in Spanish and Italian and French. And the idea is, it started out, remember Sun Microsystems, if any of you are investors? It started out as a practical joke 25 years ago at Sun Microsystems. Someone said, hey, you know that thing that Microsoft is selling for $150? Why don't we make the exact same thing and then give it away for free? So they did. I don't notice a difference. If I don't notice a difference, you might not either. I've been using it since 2002. And there were different names over the years that, you know, it was called Open Office. If someone's nephew comes over and puts Open Office in their computer, whatever. And now LibreOffice, it's the same product. There's one caveat. Millions of people download this every day, and then they are upset because when they save a document, they can't send it to people. Oh, you know what, Mark? I don't want that because then I can't send documents to people. And hold on. I'm one of 4 people on earth who knows that you can just flip a switch in there and then it'll save the documents as XLS, DOCX, whatever the prevailing standard is. All you gotta do is flip a switch. So a lot of people's nephews come over and install it, but don't know to flip that switch. So people are disappointed. And then they go back to the open arms of Microsoft. So as long as you flip a switch, right, and you just go to save as and you tell it when you save it, hey, I wanna save it as a Microsoft account. And then you can send it to your friends and it's totally fine. It's fully interchangeable, it's fully compatible. So the idea is we're saving you a lot of money every month and making sure that you don't feed the beast. Whenever possible, I try not to feed the beast, because no amount of laws will stop big tech. Matter of fact, a couple of years ago, Elizabeth Warren had a feud with Mark Zuckerberg, and she threatened to regulate him more. And he pounded his fist on the table and said, "Bring it on." And what did he mean by that? Well, it turns out, and I did an episode of my show about this years ago, it turns out he welcomed the regulation because he can afford the lawyers, but his competitors can't. It created new barriers to entry for new competitors. It cemented his monopoly. The laws and regulations, right, they're well intended, but it has the reverse effect. Good on this?
I got a quick question on cell phones. Can you change over something else to Samsung to Apple? Does all the information transit easily? Is there?
I think it's easy. My friend Mike in LA says the difference between you and me is you expect this stuff to work. None of it works, right? That's a scandal called vendor lock-in. I think I mentioned it in the book. It's a prevailing scandal in this industry. It's called the vendor lock-in scandal. And the idea is that, and I'm glad you brought that up. That's a really good point. And by the way, there are billions of other brands. Please stop feeding those two beasts. Dry up the duopoly, forget the duopoly. There are billions of brands. When people say, "Mark, what phone do you prefer?" I say non-Apple, non-Samsung. They treat you better. All right, so there are billions and zillions of other brands. Here's what happens. If I'm an evil monopoly, I can abuse you, right? You got nowhere else to go. I have 100% market share. Okay, right? How can I get away with doing that even if I don't have 100% market share? Well, I lock you in and make you addicted to my services and products. You have to have an Apple phone, an Apple Watch, an Apple socks, an Apple underwear, and an Apple hat. You have to pay Apple a bunch of fees for all of it. And all your photos are stored in Apple's cloud. You try to go to another brand, you can't move that. Who do you think you are? This is stored in our cloud. I can rescue your data from any of these clouds. They're all meant to be a one-way street. And shame on you for ever wanting your own data. I mean, never before in history have we taken people's private photos and private information and then rented it back to them. And sometimes deem you unworthy and kick you out and destroy your information. So it's called vendor lock-in, where, hey, I'm not 100% monopoly, I'm actually a duopoly. But if I lock you into my services like a bad relationship, you can't go anywhere. So I can treat you like I am a monopoly. So, I mean, it's possible. You gotta have a really astute computer guy to go and do battle on your behalf against these cloud services to get your data back. Keep it locally, keep it in your real computer, and then do a proper backup. For any of my clients who have smartphones, I pull the photos away from the iCloud or the Samsung cloud and put it locally to protect you. So that if those companies deem you as hate speech and kick you out, you can still have your stuff.
What about the contacts?
Same deal. You can perform an export, where they
Samsung, yeah.
no, you have to export it to a neutral language first.
Okay.
And of course, they don't quite comply with that neutral thing. It's an industrial standard, but that's the point. So that's the idea. And especially like if you're a consumer, if you're not an advanced user, you don't need a $1,300 phone, right? I walk in there and I say, give me the cheapest phone you have. Because it's all complex garbage that nobody needs. Apple did a commercial last year where they they showed someone filming a Hollywood movie on their iPhone Pro. If you're filming a Hollywood movie, cool, buy the $1,300 phone. But you know what? I'm gonna start doing online videos, and I'm using an iPhone 5 that I found in my drawer. And the quality is more than I need. So even if you are making Hollywood videos, get an iPhone 5 for $30 or free in everyone's recycle bin. Okay, a couple more. Feeling good? When I printed in the 90s, I had an inkjet printer, an HP DeskJet. And it was wonderful. I could print out my book reports and I had text and photos and everything all together and it looked great. And that printer lasted a long time. Why do these new ones last a year or less? I've had 4 HPs die during setup. It's funny, contrasted with the other brands where I've only seen 4 die, you know, having installed thousands of those. Every inkjet printer now, or most inkjet printers, all right, so in the 90s, let's go back. In the 90s, you had your printer cartridge, and on the printer cartridge on the bottom was called a print head. It just means the tip of the pen that touches the paper. That's all it means, okay? That print head is prone to clogging. So you're writing something on the page, and your print head clogs. Okay, well, toss the cartridge, get another one. You get fresh ink, and you get a fresh print head, and you keep going. If we were evil, what would you guys do if you were evil and wanted to sell more printers and wanted to design a printer to stop working? Remember, that print head clogs every year or so.
Make it non-replaceable.
Let's integrate the print head into the printer permanently. So now the cartridge is just a tank of ink. And the print head, the tip of the pen that touches the paper, is now at the center of the printer where you can't get to it. It's inaccessible and unrepairable and prone to clogging. Think about the landfills full of products that were deliberately designed to stop working. Inkjets of every brand are designed like this, and none of them are that reliable anymore. With certain, I'm sure there's a few exceptions, but if your printer clogs, right? You can go to the little control panel here, and of course, yeah, turn off updates, but also you can go in there under maintenance somewhere and somehow maintenance, and you can tell it to do a head cleaning, and it'll try to clean the print head. So that'll buy you some time, but eventually you just put it in the recycle bin. All right, Mark, what do you recommend? Remember, there are solutions here. You do your head cleaning, get as many years as you can out of it. In my book, I do the math as far as the pricing. You know, this little 4-ounce thing costs you $40. That's something like $42,000 a gallon. And we complain about gas prices. So always buy your ink from a third party. If you go on eBay, instead of $40 a piece, you can get a 12-pack for $20. So you save a bit there. So this is where HP came across and said, wait a minute, we want to milk people for fees forever. We don't want to just sell you a printer. We want to keep selling you this incredibly expensive ink right here. So what do? So HP, disguised as an update, sent an attack. They did this a few years ago, and then they did this again last year. They sent an attack to the printer and told the printers, if you smell a third-party cartridge, then you should turn on your owner and stop functioning. And my buddy Chris brought up a good point yesterday. He told me that there was another situation. So HP has this ink subscription scandal, right? Where they just auto bill your credit card every month and they send you cartridges. And they have an evil connection that smells, it talks to your printer and it smells if you're running out of ink, and they mail you more. And they had a glitch on their end where if your credit card expired, regardless of whether or not you had enough ink physically in your home, it sent an attack to the printer and told it to stop printing. All of their R&D all of their efforts are going to make products that stop working. That's where their efforts are going. Interesting. So that's with printers. I recommend non-HP is my favorite brand. Not HP.
Oh.
They're my favorite. Anyone in the universe. You can have some kindergartners make some out of clay and crayons, and it'll work better. But Brother is really my favorite. And it's, you know, I still use a 1996 HP printer. It's still fine. But the new ones are just not great. But yeah, Brother printers are my favorite.
I get the Brother, you can get the ink wells.
That's okay, but laser is even better. Laser is no longer prohibitively expensive. Lasers are about the same price. And laser printers last around 15 years, especially the Brother lasers.
The color too.
Yeah, so black and white laser is obviously the cheapest. The color lasers are a little bit more, but they're still worth it as time goes on. Even if you're not in office, you know, if you just want something that lasts you a long time. And the cartridges, I paid $9 and it lasted me 3 years and gave me 5,000 pages out of it.
Right?
So yeah, you go on eBay or Amazon or whatever, you get the third-party cartridges. So it's a lot cheaper overall. And you don't have to put these machines in the garbage or whatever. And again, even if you do, just properly recycle it. Even if you do have to dispose of something that's totally dead, just make sure you properly recycle. There's a lot of toxic stuff in here. You know, I yelled at my best buddy because I gave his kids a tablet and he wanted to get rid of it. So he just put it in the garbage. Hey, there's lithium in there. There's gold that can be re-harvested. There's all sorts of stuff, right? So again, even if these companies, I love how Apple brags that they're environmentalists, right? But they're making products designed to die. Even if you do recycle it, think about the energy that goes into these things. And even if you do recycle it, you're not gonna get everything. It's horribly inefficient to keep making products. It just doesn't dawn on anyone, hey, our laptops, I mean, I've got a 2007 laptop that I gave my buddy's kids and it's still fine. But why are we told that we need new ones every year? What I'll do for people, so if it's totally dead, properly recycle it. I properly recycle things for people. If you have a laptop that's on a shelf that, hey, it's a year old, it was roasted by a Windows Update attack, or it was roasted by McAfee or whatever, we take it off the shelf. Hey, you got any pictures on there? Cool, I'll rescue your pictures first. I'll erase it in front of you. And then I'll repurpose it. And I'll talk about what I do in a few seconds to completely bulletproof the machines and make them last 15 years. We're getting to the good stuff. All right, let's talk about smart TVs.
Horrible.
Yeah. Well, I was told I needed a smart TV if I wanted to watch internet content. Back in 06, I predicted the need for this because I saw all the content coming from YouTube and Netflix, and I used to have to explain to people what those were. I wanted to come home, and when I was in college, I would connect my PC to my television, and that's how we'd watch things, because the content was coming from the internet. So I came home one day and I said, I want to lay on the couch and use my remote and watch stuff. Even if it's coming from the internet, I want to lay down and use a remote like I'm used to. I don't want to have a keyboard and mouse and pop-ups and whatever, malware. So I thought of this idea back in 06, 07 of hey, we need a streaming device. And it was just too early for its time. But I learned a lot about my industry while I was creating that business. Eventually we got Roku and Fire Stick, right? And those kind of things, those are streaming devices. And they are. You use a remote control, you lay on the couch, and it allows you to watch all that internet content. And more of it, I mean, back then, a lot of people would ask me about sports, and I would say, hey, well, you know, they're not available on the internet yet, but they will be. And sure enough, here we are. And now you have to watch Thursday Night Football on the internet, which is annoying. Content is king, right? People go wherever they're told to watch whatever they want to watch. So you had streaming devices. They brought that internet content to your television. Okay, great. Well, I was told I had to throw away my TV now and buy a smart TV so I could watch this stuff. No, just get a Roku or a Fire Stick. First of all, if you do want to watch internet stuff, I make it a point to use the oldest televisions possible. I have my grandma's 2008 television that I'm still using, and I repaired it once or twice already, and I keep it rolling. Older is always more reliable. In case you haven't learned that by now, that's, older TVs are always more reliable, better made. The new ones, the new ones are physically designed, the LED televisions, the LEDs burn up after 2 years. They're designed to die pretty quick, okay. So, what do? If you wanna watch internet content, get yourself a Roku or a Fire Stick. Fire Sticks last about a year because they're attacked by update attacks. The update attacks are more vicious. Roku's last about 5 years or more. And there's a lot of them. Those are my favorites, but if you do get a smart TV, number one, tell people, warn people, look, here's the deal with the smart TV. The smart TV is a television that has the streaming device permanently integrated into it. All right. So if your Roku or Fire Stick slow down after a couple of years, you just recycle it and you spend $30 and you get another one and you're back in business. No. But if the smart TV's evil computer slows down after a couple of years, they want you to put the whole shebang in the garbage and buy a whole new TV. And people are just doing this. They're following this. Oh, that's what I was told to do. The guy at the store told me to do it. People don't question because they don't know. And I always say, after I give a talk, all of y'all know more than most computer guys in the world now. Conceptually, right? So what do? Unfortunately, almost all TVs are smart TVs now. So whatever you buy, you bring it home, you plug it in, and they're gonna beg you viciously to connect to the internet and just keep saying, no, 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 leave me alone, skip, no, 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 no. If you connect the TV to the internet, heaven forbid Samsung, they're the worst of the worst of the worst of the worst of the worst as far as ethics, but LG is following them lately. So, couple things, and you can look this up. I didn't break this news, but I'm bringing this news to the general public. They listen to what you say in that room. Oh, but it's a convenience feature. Yeah, we want to know more about you. Again, I can see basic demographics, but really everything I say? Side note, if you have the Facebook app installed on your phone, it's also recording you at all times. So let's say you don't, there was a guy who did an experiment. He didn't own a cat, but he started talking about cat food. Do you hear about that one?
Oh, yeah.
And then all of a sudden he got ads on Facebook for cat food. Interesting. So that one, we had to deduce, right? So I had a guy a couple weeks ago, let's say a month ago, and he says, Mark, I bought a TV, bought an LG. All right, fine. He says, come and set it up for me. All right. So I set it up for him and turned it on, and they were begging us desperately to connect to the internet. You could smell the desperation. And I said, all right, we're gonna hit skip. I'm gonna protect you. And he said, Mark, I wanna do this. I was told by the guy at the store, and I was told by my kids that I'd have a smart TV. So connect me to the internet. And I said, I don't know, dude. I said, just so you know, I'm gonna record everything you say. And by the way, smart TVs receive torpedo attacks from their manufacturers. They receive update attacks. I said, another month from now, this television will be too slow to use. And he said, just do it, Mark, I'll pay you. All right, fine, I'm not gonna push people, I'll do what they say. That's fine. I said, you'll call me in a month. So sure enough, a month later, Mark, my TV's horribly slow. What happened? I said, it received an update attack. And he said, my wife wants to watch that, what's that show, 1911 show that came, the Yellowstone show, and wasn't allowed to watch it. Shame on you. You had to sign up for an LG account and then sign up for this, and we don't want you watching this. Too bad for you. So they monitor and govern what you can watch. I said, yeah, that's about right. So either slows down or they deem you unworthy to watch the shows you want and put the TV in the garbage. Too bad for you. I said, all right, so we're going to disconnect them from the internet so that the TV doesn't become even slower. And then we're going to do a real Roku. We're going to stick it right on there, and then he'll just not have a problem anymore. It's incredible, right? And my buddy and his wife always say, well, Mark, you just say this and you don't like, we want the latest and greatest. Fine, you can have latest and greatest, but do it with some common sense. At least 3 people in the past 2 years have given me their Samsung 50-inch televisions. Oh, people love me, because they were too slow to use, or because the LEDs burned out. And my insurance guy called me a couple days ago and said he's given me 2 televisions, they're 65 inches. And just simple problems with them, you know, they're too slow to use, or they burned out. I said, I can have them fixed. He goes, no, you can have them, Mark. No, that's fine. I bought new ones. All right. That's cool. At least give them to me. Don't throw them away. But it's all preventable, okay? So again, and yes, the next slide, I use the same products because these are the ones in my recycle bin all the time. So again, recycle them properly.
Did I hear you say that to use Roku, you do not need internet?
You have to use internet, yeah.
Oh.
It's just that they're gonna treat you less badly. They're gonna spy on you less. So I always say here, I'm gonna give you the least bad options. So yeah.
My Comcast guy had to come and change my modem.
And it
so-
shattered everything in the house because it was
Well,
a,
no, it's just me and a couple of phones, and stuff, but because I'm really bad at this, he insisted that I just switch on my Samsung Smart TV,
brutal.
which has a Roku, that always go to live TV. I don't know live TV.
No, that's useless.
Well,
If you
what-
had an
what does
antenna,
that mean?
live TV means antenna, broadcast television.
Is it
So he
because
must not understand that you have cable, even though he's your cable guy.
or was he trying to switch me away?
He doesn't
from-
understand how TVs work. He's never heard of TVs.
So I could just use my Roku.
Use your Roku connected to the internet.
Without downloading a Roku thing.
Well, your Roku
guess
is the Roku, you already own it, but
Okay,
connect the Roku to the internet and make sure the TV itself with the TV remote is disconnected from the internet. Cause the TV is doing all the spying and all the torpedo attacks. And governing what you watch and so on and so forth. And again, these guys don't know any better, right? He's probably good at running wires, but he doesn't understand the TV. All of this stuff is utter chaos.
so if I don't care about being spied on and just wanna watch a television program once in a while.
Well,
Just leave
it's not
it.
live TV. What he meant to say, what he
Okay.
should have said is you switch it to HDMI, which goes to your real cable box, if you have a real cable box.
Yes,
And that will bring you live broadcast television. He probably thought, this
Okay.
lady doesn't even use the internet, and he just wanted you. The other thing is Comcast wants you to use their evil cable box, even for internet stuff that has nothing to do with them, so they can keep you.
but
right.
you have, okay, yeah, you don't wanna hear all
Yeah,
this. I've got them for one television, Roku for another.
Right, just do Roku's for all of them eventually. But yeah, he wanted you to go to HDMI so you can use the Comcast box, and that's fine. But yeah, just make sure the TV itself isn't connected to the internet.
I can't tell who's charging you what.
And that's why I need to train armies of people to help consumers. And I had a guy the other day, intelligent, successful lawyer, and tip of the iceberg problem, called me for some tiny question on his iPhone, and I just stumbled on this thing. I said, wait a minute. What are these recurring subscriptions? One time he downloaded some photo app one time and didn't realize that, and he'd done this a couple times with different apps, and these apps were charging him. He was spending $100 a year in total on different things that were pilfering money from him, and he had no clue. How are you gonna go to these secret menus in your iPhone?
Where do you find it on your bill?
Well, I mean, it'll of course be on your real credit card bill, so I'm glad we still have real things like that. But if you go in your phone, you go to iCloud and then maybe subscriptions
Okay,
and something like that, and they change it every week, so I can't tell you how, but it's,
okay,
yeah. So that's that story.
thank you.
Yeah, but just properly recycle. As far as laptops. What are we gonna do to actually solve this stuff, right? Like the guy last night who told me, Mark, I have a 1-year-old laptop. Best Buy told me, shame on you, it doesn't conform to the latest thing, so we need to sell you a new one, right? And he was a successful guy, he could afford it, right? But there was no need. what I'll do with products, especially laptops. Especially laptops. Again. I'll ask clients, hey, you got a laptop here. Gonna rescue your photos off of it, and we'll erase it. And then we'll do a couple things. I say, do you need a laptop? All right, you want a secondary machine for traveling? Cool. Let me resurrect it for you and you can have it. If they don't need it, then I wipe it and I resurrect it and I give it to a local tutoring center. Or I send it to people I know in Africa or that sort of thing. And these people really appreciate these machines that were left for dead, right? Same thing with tablets, right? You erase it, you sign out of the account, right? Because Apple and Samsung have what I call a death grip on your tablet or your phone. You are not allowed to give it to someone else. Apple and Samsung will accuse them of being a thief unless you sign out properly. It's called death grip scandal, and it's coming up in my next book that I'm writing. Because why would they want you to sell it to someone or give it to someone in need when you could put it in the garbage and buy another one? These are all preventable issues that are deliberately perpetrated on society. So, what do we do? How do I make a machine last 15 years? I go into this in the book a lot. Remember I said open source, right? It's volunteers who want to protect you from big tech. So you have Microsoft Windows, right? Then you have Apple Mac OS on your computers and laptops, right? There's a third alternative called Mint. And that's what I did with my 2012 Mac, right? Because any Apple that's more than 4 years old is now too slow to use thanks to Apple's vicious update attacks. They've ramped up the brutality of their attacks. I remember there was one time, I was like 2014 maybe, when all my clients who had Apples called me in the same day, Mark, do I have a virus? My computer's horribly slow, right? And a bunch of them called me, and again, all right, let's figure out the common denominator here. Everyone, Mark, my computer's horribly slow, my Mac is horribly slow, my Mac is horribly slow. I looked at it and said, all right, what's going on here? And the common denominator was they were all hit with an update attack that was especially brutal from Apple. And it made all of those Apple machines too slow to use. Apple got away with it because it's just slow. Computers get slow. Why don't I sell you a new one? So anyway, what do I do with these Mac machines that are too slow to use? And what do I do with these Windows machines that were destroyed by Norton? So I put Mint on it. Mint is an alternative to Windows or Mac OS. It's an alternative operating system. So if you say, Mark, I got this extra computer and I do want to keep it and I want to use it for myself as an extra machine. All right, so I put Mint on it and I say, I'll give it to you. I'll give you Mint on your secondary machine and you can get used to it. I'm not going to change your primary machine until you get used to it. Mint is the best of both worlds. Not only is it made by volunteers and given away for free, you just pay me labor to put it in, but it's the security of a Mac with the familiarity of Windows. If I didn't tell you any better, you could walk up to my Mint laptop right now and use it and you wouldn't notice any better because it looks just like a Windows 7 machine. There's no difference as far as your experience. Okay. It's stable and virtually invincible to all threats. So I get someone who calls me up. My favorite example is this lady who called me. I was in the newspaper in 2012. I had a bunch of people calling me from that, and that was really great. One lady called me up and she said, I lug my 50-pound computer to my computer guy every month. And I pay him $83 and he does a virus scan. And I have a problem and I keep having all these constant problems. And even he's feeling bad at this point. That even he's feeling bad. And I said, all right, Sue, I said, do you have McAfee or Internet Explorer? Do those ring a bell? And she said, yeah, wow, how'd you know? And I said, well, those are the cause of all problems on Earth. And she said, what do I do? Even my computer guy feels bad at this point. And I said, I'm going to give you something here. I said, first of all, what are you doing on this machine? Are you doing something wild or what? She says, no, I check my work schedule. I work for the grocery store and I check my work schedule on their website once a week. That's all I'm doing. And I read the news sometimes. It's really, the entire planet is suffering with all of this stuff unnecessarily because The volunteers over at Mint don't have the time or ability to promote this stuff, so it's up to me. That's one of the reasons I'm going on this tour. So I took her machine, it was a couple years old, right, and they were ready to sell her another one. If she'd gone to the big box store, they would have gladly sold her another one, no reason, and she would have had the same problems. So I erased her machine and I put Mint on there and it looked the same, very little difference. As far as how it appears. And how she uses it. And I said, there you go, you'll never need me again. And she hasn't needed, I talked to her a couple days ago, yesterday morning, she called for a tiny question. She's needed me for tiny questions, but that's it. She can't have a problem, she has never had a problem since January of 2012 when I met her. She doesn't need anything, she doesn't pay anything, she doesn't have to lug it anywhere, she just uses it to do. All people want is to get on the internet and be left alone and do a couple of emails. Our current products, like my buddy was telling me yesterday, he's like, what if you just needed a Honda Civic and they were trying to sell you a Ford F-350, and by the way, there was an elephant in the bed, so it was too slow to use. All people want is to get on and be left alone. That's what Mint does. And I do it for people. I live in a city that has the worst city school district in my state. And hardly anyone graduates, everyone goes to jail and so on. And there's this tutoring center that I donate these resurrected, refurbished laptops to. It's called Bethel Express. They have 100% graduation, 100% success rate for these kids. It's unbelievable. And these kids, what they're doing, so I'll give you guys anything you need. Like, it's just when anyone meets these people, they fall in love with them. And they're just, they bought a house to use as a tutoring house in a really bad part of town. And they told the lawyer what they did. And they said, all right, how much do we owe you for closing costs? And he says, get out of here. I'm not charging you a penny. And he fell in love with them. So the point is, old technology, if you want to do an event here, and I was telling your librarian this earlier, if you want to do an event here, do an electronics recycling event or something like that, where, hey, erase your computer, give it to someone in need. Any questions?
I don't know who you just.
You know, if you still have a Samsung television, keep rolling with it, just disconnect it from the internet and keep enjoying it. I had an uncle in Carlisle who died a year ago, and I inherited his Samsung television, and I just keep it off the internet and it's fine. It's good picture quality, I'll give them that. Yeah, I am thrilled to speak to any groups you want me to speak to. In case you haven't noticed, I enjoy speaking. I have a podcast, and yeah, feel free to email me if you want to pick my brain before you buy anything or whatever.
How?
My email address is there,
Oh,
and I got a business card as well. They're real good. Yeah. Usually my computer tells me how long the duration of the speech was, a couple hours, yeah, it's about 2.5. Wow.
Thank you.
Yeah.
thank you.
Thanks so much for being here. Appreciate you. If you feel like it, I got books and business cards and whatever.
Like a card.
Yeah,
How much are the books?
25, including my signature. Yeah.
They should have classes in schools and things.
I would love to, if you know any schools, bring me there and put me in front of someone.
Yeah, it should be a curriculum.
Did you say to change, if I wanted to, not the VPN, you didn't think that was a good idea? But,
Totally pointless, yeah.
but the IP, do you suggest
All
to
right,
change the
IP addresses, I talk about IP addresses in my book. IP addresses you never need to worry about ever. Thanks.
You don't, so if someone tries to find out where you're from or where you are,
It's all pointless.
it's pointless
it's-
to
I
change
mean,
your
if
IP
you-
address?
Yeah, they'll get a general idea of your town. That's all they get from your IP address. That's it. In the book, that's a great question. In the book, I go into explaining IP addresses. I give a long explanation in plain English, to help empower people on that one. The idea is this: you have a public IP, which is what the world sees, and that's what your household is. It's like your last name, let's say, like that's the Smith household, that's the Arena household. It's just an IP address for your household. And then inside of the household, each device has its own IP address. That's
Right.
for, like your first name, right? Each one has a first name in that household. That's all an IP address is. It's an identifier for that device.
It's not a protection to protect you from,
Nothing at all. It's just an identifier.
it's always on the news and always kind of on.
Because the journalists have no clue what any of this is, because they haven't read my book, and bad guys know that IP address is a word that triggers people to get scared. By the way, so since 2001, every router and every computer on this planet has had a built-in firewall. And a firewall is not an active thing. It's just a wall that sits there. Passive, it sits there. So even if I know your IP address, I can type it in. And your firewall says, no comment. Every computer and router since 2001 has had a firewall built in. So some scummy company says, you need our firewall software. Then they're hoping you don't know that everything since 01 has been protected.
I also got my other half. We have two LG TVs, one Sony Bravia and one Ruco Smart TV, but that's attached to it.
So right, if it's a built-in
Yes,
Roku,
it is.
it's gonna slow down over time, but at least you can use it and it's ethical until the day it's too slow to use. The rest of the TVs, disconnect them from the internet. Sony sold its soul to Google, so now all Sony TVs are infested with Google technology, just disconnect it from the internet.
I get confused again of it. But somebody different than the Comcast guy installed my Roku things into my
Great,
very old smart TVs.
good.
So I don't know what he did about disconnecting from the,
So have that person come back and make sure the TVs themselves, all right, then find someone else.
okay, I
Yeah,
could
fully
probably do
independent
it if I
person.
knew what I was supposed to do.
It depends on the remote. You'd have to use specifically the TV remote and then go to settings, and Samsung is especially deceptive when it comes to this. Sometimes you go to network and then reset network. That's the way to do it, and Samsung does not wanna let their claws off of that internet connection.
Okay, now if I wanted to get rid of my last router
Yeah,
and just use, because I have
so
three
you're
televisions.
probably using the fake rental router because you said when the Comcast guy came in, it shattered all your connections. That implies that he changed out your router. If you had your own router, he could do whatever he wanted in his jurisdiction, but it wouldn't affect the traffic in your
changed my
house. Does that make
modem.
sense?
No, he changed the modem.
But did he have to reconnect everything?
I don't know.
Okay, cause if you had your own router, then he wouldn't have to reconnect any of that, cause it would be,
If I just
Stable.
wanted to get rid of that final router, am I shooting myself in the foot? I'll never be able to watch any television again unless I do.
so getting rid of your router means you wouldn't be able to connect to the internet with anything in your house.
Okay.
So there wouldn't be a reason, yeah. I mean, if
Okay,
you wanna
have
buy a
to
new
have a
router.
router.
Right, you have to have a router. I'm just saying, don't use the low quality rental router.
Well, that's
That's
what
all
I'm
I'm
using.
saying, just buy your own.
But
Yeah, so it's not,
okay.
yeah,
But if I have to have that router and that's one television, and then even a Roku, this gizmo is attached to that television.
great question, yeah.
And the Roku things are on the other televisions.
You always have to have one router in the house. Great question. So you
Okay,
have to have one router. Let's say you have 10 people living in the house. You still need one shower head so they can all take a shower, right? It's that idea.
okay.
The router provides the connection to everything in your house regardless of what it is.
All right.